Hello everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we're diving into a remarkable story from World War II, a story of how one pilot flying the de Havilland Mosquito literally left a Focke-Wulf Fw-190 in his wake. It's a tale of extraordinary aircraft performance, clever tactics, and nerve-wracking aerial combat. The Mosquito earning the nickname Wooden Wonder was no accident, and one particular technique made it nearly untouchable in seconds. Let's break it down in full detail. The Mosquito's story begins with an unconventional design. Built largely of wood, it was lightweight, fast, and versatile. According to history sources, by the time it was operational, it had a speed and agility that rivaled frontline fighters. While the Fw-190 was a feared German fighter, the Mosquito had some unique strengths. One of those strengths lay in how it handled dives and high-speed escapes. As one aviation source puts it, pilots also learned they could shake the Fw-190 by going into a shallow dive and performing a corkscrew maneuver, since the Focke-Wulf's controls tended to freeze up at high speeds more quickly than those of the Mosquito. Imagine this scenario. A Mosquito crew, having completed a strike or reconnaissance mission, is being pursued by one or more Fw-190s. The Germans dive from altitude, aiming to exploit their fighters' excellent diving speed and rate of climb. The Fw-190, ridden by experienced Luftwaffe pilots, knows how deadly it can be if it catches an enemy in the open. But the Mosquito pilot has something fewer adversaries expected. Here's where the crazy dive technique comes into play. The Mosquito pilot initiates a shallow dive, not a steep, plunging one, but enough to build speed and shift energy. Sources on the Mosquito's performance note that the aircraft accelerates. Well, in a dive and the limiting speed of 450 mph, IAS can be quickly obtained in a fairly shallow dive of about. This technique gives the Mosquito an advantage. The pilot trades altitude for speed, but not too much height lost, so the aircraft retains control authority and escape options. As the Mosquito enters the shallow dive, the crafty pilot then begins a corkscrew or spiral dive escape maneuver, banking and rolling subtly to disrupt the attack geometry of the Fw-190. Since the German fighter's controls became heavy and less responsive at very high speeds or steep dives, especially in pull-out phases, the Mosquito's ability to maintain lighter control loads became a key benefit. Meanwhile, the Mosquito pilot keeps the throttle up, maintains full power, and uses the twin-engine configuration to advantage. The Germans pursue, closing fast, but they begin to struggle. Here's the moment where the Mosquito outruns the Fw-190 in seconds. Because the Mosquito pilot has wisely maintained control and avoided very steep dives that might overstress the wooden airframe or cause control jam, he retains maneuverability. He can roll out, accelerate away, and once he detects the Fw-190 dropping back, losing speed, dealing with control heaviness, or forced to break off, the Mosquito pilot simply levels off at a safe altitude and shoots past the enemy fighter. According to sources, if the Mosquito pilot could confound the initial attack by turning, then pour on the coals, it was likely to be able to get away. The key elements of this technique are: 1. Recognizing the dive attack from the Fw-190 and resisting the instinct to simply turn tighter or climb straight away. Entering a shallow dive to build speed, but managing it so that control authority remains. 3. Executing a subtle corkscrew or spiral to upset the geometry and force the pursuer into less optimal dive angles. 4. Exploiting the advantage that the Mosquito's control surfaces stayed light and predictable at high speeds, while the Fw-190s become heavy. Then accelerating away, regaining level flight, and leaving the pursuer behind, all in a matter of seconds once the window opens. What makes this even more remarkable is how counterintuitive it seems. You'd believe a heavy twin-engine bomber, albeit a fast one, would be incapable of outrunning a dedicated single-engine fighter like the Fw-190, yet the synergy of the aircraft's design and the pilot's choice of tactic produced just that. The Mosquito's designer intentionally kept the controls light at high speeds, meaning the pilot could pull out of the dive more easily and avoid the structural or aerodynamic control issues that plagued many high-speed aircraft. Let's illustrate it with a hypothetical encounter. The Mosquito leaves its target area at low level. The Fw-190 is vectored onto it and starts a high-altitude dive. The Mosquito pilot senses the attacker above, acknowledges the threat, and rather than heading straight home or climbing, which would slow him relative to the dive, he initiates a shallow dive, angle maybe 20-30 degree full power, trimming for dive. As the Mosquito accelerates, the pilot begins a gentle roll, spiraling downward along treetop or low-level terrain if possible. The German fighter, committed to a steeper dive to maintain closure, rips into the Mosquito's general vicinity. But as he tries to follow, his controls begin to feel heavy, his energy state drops rapidly, and the Mosquito is already increasing its speed advantage. At the lowest point of the shallow dive, the Mosquito pilot pulls out into level flight at safe speed, opens the throttles, and levels off to climb or accelerate away. The Fw-190, now behind or out of position, cannot easily catch because its controls are burdened, or it has to climb from a lower energy state, or it has simply lost the pursuit opportunity. In the lull, the Mosquito accelerates homewards. The outcome, what appears to be a heavier twin-engine bomber escaping a sharper fighter in seconds. It was far from guaranteed, but when executed correctly, it tipped the advantage. The Mosquito pilot's decision-making and use of aircraft characteristics turned a potentially perilous chase into a safe getaway. It wasn't just speed. It was speed used with clever energy management and avoidance of the enemy's strengths. Now, to emphasize the importance of timing, the pilot had to act at the right moment, when the mate enemy fighter committed to the dive and before the Mosquito's energy fell too low. The shallow dive mustn't become a steep plunge, because then control problems, speed excess issues, or structural loads could become dangerous. Also, the terrain mattered. Many low-level escapes used ground clutter or treetop height to complicate the fighter's optics and positioning. The Mosquito's navigator often assisted with timing and cues to pull out. Finally, the legacy. This tactic underscores why the Mosquito had one of the lowest loss rates of any bomber in the RAF. It shows that aircraft design plus pilot tactics can overturn expectations. For your audience in America, this story highlights how ingenuity, not just brute force, defined so many aerial engagements in World War II. In conclusion, the Royal Air Force pilot flying the Mosquito used a shallow dive plus corkscrew maneuver to upset the Fw-190's attack. Capitalizing on the Mosquito's stability and control authority at high speed, and outran his pursuer in seconds. It's a brilliant example of form-matching function and tactics. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe for more aviation stories.